Virginia Senate. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces and people who care about our companion animals. And welcome everyone. First up today is Senator Stanley. He has 4 bills in front of us today. And Senator Stanley, if you could, Lisa, could you? We'll just have him sit there. That's fine.
I like being over here.
Okay. Yeah, if you could. You're good? He doesn't want to look at me this early in the morning. It's not fair. All right.
I guess I'm with all the smart people.
That's it.
That's exactly right. These are the guys that get held
Chair,
back
we
after
have
school.
to do roll call.
Oh, yes, we do, I guess. Please, call the roll.
Senator Favola?
Present.
Senator Hackworth?
Present.
Senator Marsden?
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
There we go. Thank you very much. And as you know, basically, these are not final decisions, but will go before the full Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee next Tuesday. And we have 7 bills before us today. Senator Stanley has 4. Senator Boysko has 2. I have 1. And we will begin. There you go. It is. But we'll start with Senator Stanley and Senate Bill 87.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Stanley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always good to see you. And Senator Favola, welcome back. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Senator.
I'm not trying to curry favor with your votes, but okay, maybe I am. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee, Senate Bill 87 is a very simple bill that amends 3.26511.2. Which basically says this: it prohibits a dealer or commercial dog cat breeder from importing for sale, selling, or offering for sale a dog or a cat that is bred by a person or entity or corporation, person being defined in the code as including a corporate entity who has received certain citations pursuant to the Federal Animal Welfare Act, as stated, that's 7 U.S.C. 2131. Current law only prohibits such activities related to the sale of dogs generally. That is pet shops, puppy mills, breeders, those kind of things, and is actually a law that we put in not too long ago. But this clarifies basically that in that inclusion that we have that we require other pet stores and breeders and the like. This clarifies that now includes selling the dog or cat for experimental purposes, and that's the bill. Now, I will say, Mr. Chairman, in Vigo, which is a place that you and I went to on 2 occasions, has had a citation from the United States Department of Agriculture, or at least a report. I wouldn't call it a citation, but this is not a bill that is retroactive, so its effective date would be July 1, 2022.
All right.
Question.
Senator Stanley. Senator Favola.
Is there a definition of experimental anywhere in the code?
There is not. This is not an area that we have delved into much, so.
So this would be, so state regulators would define experimental and have the responsibility of enforcing this?
Mr. Chairman, I'd also answer the gentlelady by saying I think, some words we need to define, like person, because person can encompass just a small amount or a large amount of a community. Mm-hmm. In this context, as an attorney, and certainly one that reads the code as a part of my real job, words are taken at their plain meaning by courts and by agencies in administering of those laws. And experimental purposes seems to be pretty plain in terms of what that would be. So
I think Senator Stanley that it really is anything that's not routinely done in the care and feeding and of animals.
I would agree
experimental.
with you. I would agree with you. And
So it could be a broad interpretation, which is fine.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
There we are.
Just
All right.
to completely understand.
Okay. Any other questions? From those in the audience, anyone wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Thank you, Chair Marsden, members of the subcommittee. My name is Molly Armas. I'm the Virginia State Director for Humane Society of the United States. I'm here on behalf of the HSUS as well as the Virginia Coalition for Beagle Protection, which represents almost 40 Virginia animal welfare organizations, as well as hundreds of thousands of Virginia residents. And we respectfully urge you to support SB 87. We thank Senator Stanley for his leadership. Just to echo what he said, this just expands current law, which already exists, to include anyone who sells, breeds any dog or cat for experimental purposes. So, again, protections by the Animal Welfare Act are pretty meager. They're basically survival standards, and repeat offenders are allowed to just continue breeding and selling animals, even if they have repeatedly violated the law. So citations and fines don't necessarily translate into improvements, and federal investigations can take a long time. And so this is really a fair and a reasonable and a responsible way to ensure compliance with the Animal Welfare Act and other animal protection laws. And we really do urge your support of SB 87. And thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Next.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Sharon Quillen Adams, Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. Senator Hackworth, I just want to tell you I'm a big fan of Mountain Mission School and a supporter, so thank you for that. We support this bill. We support bills that by and large apply to everybody. We have excluded certain folks from regulations, and this bill simply pulls them into regulations. So
Okay. Excuse me, 1 second. Sharon, we need to have our speakers have a chair, and
And I get to sit next to Senator Stanley.
you do. It
Don't
is.
move away. Watch
No. She finally supports a bill of mine. This is like a great day in my life right now.
Once
Yeah,
a year. Once a year.
Once a year.
I don't get to sit next to Senator Stanley because, believe it or not, we're in different political parties. Yeah. Yes.
You could fool me with that one there.
Say to Senator Hackworth. I'm Sharon Quillen Adams for the Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. We support this bill because we support bills by and large that apply across the board to everybody. We think this is an equity bill, a fair bill, and we support it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Daphne.
Good morning, Chairman Marsden, honorable members of the subcommittee. Thank you, Senator Stanley, for your leadership on this issue. I echo my colleagues' comments, and I just wanted to add that an identical companion bill passed the House Subcommittee on Agriculture yesterday. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Please.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Katie Hellebush, channeling Susan Seward with the Virginia Medical Veterinarians Association. We also are here to speak in support of the bill, and we also would like to speak in support of any solution that would come and be a meaningful solution for this situation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katie. Anyone else? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? All right.
Chairman, I move that we report the bill. Is that-
With the reenactment?
Yes, with the okay. May I have a further explanation then?
For me?
Yes, Senator Stanley.
Well,
Because right now, the bill in front of me
yeah.
just is effective.
So what I understand is certainly to try to get this bill moving out. What I think the reasoning behind the reenactment has been related to me is that we have these USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, animal inspections. Mm-hmm. We had a very devastating one that was not good, which caused Senator Marsden and myself to travel, I believe in October, was it, sir? To that place. I think we had a very frank conversation with the representatives of that company. I think the obligation of the reenactment is to give them the ability to get their act together or get out. And I think that's the purpose. And, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to speak outside of that, but it seems to me that while I do not like at all the new inspection report that was just released, I hate to even say it's better than the last one, but we cannot keep tolerating treating the Lord's animal. Yeah. Man's best friend in this manner, no matter what kind of lofty goals we have in terms of trying to better mankind and through medicine and medical experiments. Some of the things that I'm reading even now about high dosing these beagles with cocaine to induce heart attacks and try to reverse overdoses, while a laudable goal, that dog didn't deserve that. Yeah. That dog does not deserve that. That dog does not deserve, as another report was, to be placed in septic shock. I can say personally that these are some of the greatest lives, beating hearts that I've ever seen. And so this is one of those things where, look, it is understood. I understand now that if we can say go, then they're just going to go to West Virginia. Or we can regulate and bring them into the humane community the best we can, while at the same time disagreeing with them. And so that's what I understand, Mr. Chairman, your or the committee's desire, especially to garner favorable results on perhaps even my side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These very, very complicated issues, sort of require planning and long-distance planning for how we deal with these things. And, this bill would, if it was enacted immediately, would sort of be a kill switch, because there's a later bill that I hope to have passed out of this subcommittee and on to the full committee that will deal with a way to bring this entity and Vigo into line with best practice. I know there are people who don't feel like they should have this practice at all, but we do. I believe that it is necessary, and with the reenactment clause that we have here, that what we'll be able to do is hit the kill switch next year, having already been through this debate, and be able to take care of it. But to have this hanging over the head of Envigo while they're trying to make these changes. And again, this bill, all of these bills have a distance to travel, if you will, through the process. The House is taking a very different approach to some of these issues, and that's what we will eventually be able to sort out. But Senator Stanley and I came up with a plan as to how to deal with what we were both very, very unhappy with, and we've taken the time to go out there on 2 occasions and meet and talk and try to find a path forward. And so the reenactment clause is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of fairness that will give you a shot, but that we'll have a ready vehicle ready to go if things don't.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may add to that, if these reports keep coming, we'll be back.
Yeah. And
Mr. Chairman, can you read the reenactment clause?
I haven't seen it.
It's not in front of us either.
I think it's pretty standard language.
It says it's a second enactment at the end of the bill after line 24 that would say that the provisions of this act shall not become effective unless reenacted by the 2023 session of the General Assembly.
There we go. All right.
I'll make a motion to second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to report
amended.
Okay, is amended to that the bill passes with a reenactment clause. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Hackworth? Senator Marsden?
Aye.
Ayes 3, no 0.
Ayes 3, no 0. The bill reports. Senator Stanley, you also have Senate Bill 88.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I again come before you with, I think, a way that when we went to, Mr. Chairman, the second inspection, and we saw what we didn't have was a quantifiable, actual ability to understand what the scope of what they were doing was. Because, if you're going to treat a companion animal like a commodity, then you ought to know how many cans are on the shelf and in what condition they're in. And then if we're regulating them, even in the least, which we are, then we should be able, as a government, to access those reports. And obviously, there are some sensitivities that corporations always have in terms of clientels, client lists, and those things. And that does not totally seek to undo that at all. What this bill does, it requires entities that breed dogs or cats for sale or transfer for animal testing or experimentations or to an animal testing facility, that they got to keep certain records each year, and they have to keep and retain those records for 2 years from the date of sale or transfer, and annually submit a summary of those records. Not so deep diving specific, but they've got to keep their records for 2 years, and then summarize to VDACs exactly, in a general sense, what they've done. But this record keeping, because I think it's absolutely necessary to be able to track and to make sure compliance with whatever we do is ongoing And that way, we're not trying to count. I mean, even in the USDA reports, we saw some of the dogs were missing or unaccounted for. There has to be some accountability and some accounting. So in this bill, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, in SB 88, those records shall include the description of the dog or cat, including species, color, breed, sex, approximate weight, and age, as well as the name and address of the animal testing facility which the dog or cat was sold or transferred, and that they be made available upon request of the department, animal control officers, law enforcement officers at mutually agreeable times. And then submit, of course, the annual summary that I described. Mr. Chairman, in discussions with some people, maybe we could expand that reporting requirement to include an employee to animal ratio, just a reporting of it, not a mandatory minimum, but what is the animal to employee ratio in terms of care for these animals, these beautiful dogs, and making sure that that ratio is high enough that we can make sure that we're not seeing these reports anymore of dogs falling through grates, of not being treated well, or being harmed. And that's the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Stanley. Any questions from the committee? And I think that this bill also is compatible with Senator Boysko's Senate Bill 442. I think they really work, well in tandem here, and I like this bill. Anyone here to speak in favor?
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we thank Senator Stanley for introducing this bill. I'm Tabitha Treelor. I'm the Director of Communications for the Richmond SPCA, and I'm also speaking on behalf of the Virginia Coalition for Beagle Protection. We represent a coalition of nearly 40 animal welfare groups that are all united on this issue. And Senator Stanley's bill is very similar to those standards that are already voluntarily reported by Virginia releasing agencies, large and small, both private animal shelters, rescue groups, public shelters. We report to VDACs each year. In fact, just last week was our reporting date. And all intake, all dispositions of animals, and this is a great measure to provide some sunlight. And we know the wonderful things that come from transparency and accountability. And we hope that you will report. Adding the animal to employee ratio, I think, would also be a great measure for fully understanding the level of care that is being provided or not being provided. I will tell you that at the Richmond SPCA, we care for about 300 animals each day, and I report in our annual report voluntarily that we always have no more than 15 animals per employee caring for them. You've seen, hopefully, the USDA inspection report of the only less than 20 people tasked with the care of more than 5,000 dogs at Envigo. And that is not even nearing substantial.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sharon Quillen Adams, Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. We support this bill. We support everything that Tabitha just said. I, too, ran a shelter. I had 50% more employees for 200 animals than they have for 5,000, and I didn't have a $500 million budget. Peter Drucker says you can't manage what you don't measure. We're asking them to measure what they're now expected to manage so that we can manage it through their measurement. So, thank you.
Very good. Next. Hey. Hey, Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Hazard on behalf of the Virginia Federation of Humane Societies. We strongly support this bill as well, and I'm not sure if there's going to be a motion for reenactment of this. There will not be, but we would oppose the reenactment provisions.
No need
they've already been given
no need on this
3
one.
strikes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning again. Daphne with PETA. For the sake of brevity, I will just say that I affiliate myself with my colleagues' comments. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Daphne.
Molly Armis for the Humane Society of the United States. Same, we affiliate with the comments already made. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
Katie Hellebush again, Mr. Chair and members with VVMA. And again, we would just advocate and promote a meaningful solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. Anyone here in opposition to the bill? Seeing none, floor is
Mr.
open.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I just
Yes.
want to reiterate one thing, and I think you share this opinion with me. We didn't do this. Virginia didn't do this. We're not just coming in and trying to regulate a business that was doing fine without us.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this because of what these reports have developed, have revealed. We're doing this because of the film and footage.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this because they have to have this.
Yeah.
We didn't do this. They did. And there may be people that are standing in here in support, in opposition, but they need to know that. And you can't just push the General Assembly around because you're big and bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is the fair, right, and just thing to do. This is a reporting requirement that we make for all of our releasing agencies, pet stores.
Yeah.
Then they got to be treated the same way.
Exactly. And the only thing I will say in terms of Virginia failed here, I believe.
We did.
In Vigo, certainly, but, our failure to provide proper oversight or have laws in place to provide proper oversight, I don't like that. And the fact is that this is a problem we have helped to create.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you tried to solve that, and the government didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
You tried to solve that. And so both parties need to row in the same direction, but we owe this to the citizens.
We do.
And those man's best friends that are in there.
Exactly.
We can't solve a problem that we don't understand.
And these are not onerous regulations.
All right, the floor is open for a motion.
I move we report Senate Bill 88 as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have the bills before us. We have a first and a second.
Mr. Chairman, a point of order. I recommended or had suggested the ratio reporting as well, employee to dog number. Is that included in the motion?
Can we take that up? I think, perhaps today Envigo is going to be talking about that, and let's hear that out, and then we can take that up in full committee.
Mr. Chairman, I understand, and I appreciate you.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Hackworth? Senator Marsden?
Aye.
Ayes 3, no 0.
Ayes 3, no 0. The bill reports to the full committee. Senator Stanley, you next have Senate Bill 90.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you may recall, I believe a year or two back, I proposed what is now 3.265 93.1, which was in response to our first visit and certainly some news reports with regard to what were happening to dogs that were being experimented with, even in our public institutions, that after they had used up their usefulness, after they had served mankind, that they were being euthanized on many occasions. And so the original bill itself was then to bring under an obligation for those testing facilities, those places that bought these dogs for experimental purpose, that when the dog's usefulness, so-called usefulness, to those departments, even in the state and otherwise, that had used them for experiment, when that usefulness had ended, that they would then offer the dog or cat for adoption and utilize releasing agencies or even create their own adoption facility. After our second visit, it seemed even more important for me to clarify that law to include, even though I believed that it included it to begin with, breeders, as the definition on line 23 said, a dog breeder who breeds dogs and cats for sale or transfer to an animal testing facility. One can only encourage that if they care, as they have stated to you and myself, that they care about these dogs, that then we should reward those dogs with a forever life in a loving home. That's our obligation as human beings, and I would think it's that corporate obligation that they should undertake as well. I will say, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, after our last visit to there, and we understood, COVID put a lot of pressure on them. Okay, that's what they said, and that there was an excess of beagles who had, I guess, expired on the useful age, but Envigo stepped up and was willing to and shoulder a lot of the financial burden, transportation burden, and all that to make sure that those animals, approximately, if you remember, Mr. Chairman, in excess of 400, to find forever homes, loving homes. And I'm happy to report, because most of the people back here who represent the people who have undertaken Homeward Trails, Sue Bell, our Humane Society, everybody. I mean, we're on pace to find homes for all of those dogs. And I credit them and I credit Invigo for working together to try to find those forever homes. And so I hope that continues, as much as there will always be tension, even animosity. But this makes sure that the obligation is now codified and that there's no wiggle room, that we know that anybody breeds a dog for sale to a testing facility, if they don't sell them, then they should find adoptive homes for them.
Thank you so much, Senator Stanley. I have an alternate solution, which is if I take you out there 4,998 more times, there won't be any dogs left.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I would answer you that is exactly true, but I will then be divorced and probably cited for, hoarding. But allow me to say this. They're the best dogs ever, and we rescue dogs. And let me tell you, I've said, if you sold them just to people that wanted to buy a dog, and that was what you did, they're the best dogs you ever want to have. And that's really what I hope that would happen. But you're right. I would take them all.
very, very good.
I would. That's the real problem. But it's not hoarding, I swear. It's just,
It's just, it is just, there you go. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? Anyone here in favor of the bill? If we could just, in the interest of time, just give us your name, your organization, and let us know that you support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Richmond SPCA and the Virginia Coalition for Beagle Protection. We support Senator Stanley's bill. I do want to elaborate just very briefly to point out that the USDA report from October documented dogs who were marked for culling with conditions that were entirely treatable. There were also 9 dogs in the mortality records who had a body part injured by a dog in an adjacent kennel. And these dogs were killed regardless of the severity of these injuries. While these symptoms and injuries may limit their usefulness to the company, they are conditions that are fully capable of rehabilitation and treatment by organizations like the Richmond SPCA, which is so known for its rehabilitation of sick and injured animals and then placement to lasting homes. And so we ask that this bill add a requirement to offer these dogs for adoption, and we ask that you move to report. Thank you.
What, can you be more specific what you're asking?
So I'm asking that not only would healthy animals who have no more usefulness for the company be offered for adoption, but also those that organizations, releasing agencies would be capable of treating for various injuries and conditions, things like the dog who had documented entropion of the eye, injuries to legs and ears. Those are all things that we would be capable of rehabilitating in order to get them to a place where they can find homes.
Not adverse to that.
Okay.
They should. And it's a credit to the releasing agencies, because even in the adoption process and what we've been doing in the great work the great work both sides have been doing in this, the releasing agency have said, we want to take care of and find homes for those that have been, or older dogs or sick dogs. And so that's doing the Lord's work. So I appreciate that. If there's a way to make such an amendment,
I think we could probably do that for the full committee if we could.
Mr. Chairman, I'm slightly confused because this law doesn't limit. This law says that any animal has to try to be adopted as long as it doesn't pose a health or safety risk to the public or the welfare of the animal.
Right.
Yeah, I think Senator Stanley's bill already does what we're asking. If there's no longer a use for the company, the dog needs to be offered for adoption.
Right. There's no caveat that it has to be fully healthy.
Yeah. Let's not complicate the code. And but thank you very much, Sharon.
Once again, Sharon Adams, Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. We have offered to take these dogs. We have 200 members who have reached out. We have a lot of experience with this. I do want to remind the committee that there's also an alternative to all of this. We were able to achieve a partnership with Virginia Tech Vet School, which no longer purchases dogs from Envigo, but rather takes dogs from our shelters. So they're now in partnership with 2 Virginia shelters, 1 West Virginia shelter. It's a fostering. These animals receive adequate care. The veterinarians receive training. All of the dogs have been adopted, and so there's another way to do it besides Envigo.
There is one of my neighbors in Burke, Virginia, has taken a dog from Virginia Tech. So that's a great move, because I never quite understood, for their purposes, I would think that they'd want a number of different breeds to teach their students how to examine an animal and brush their teeth and do all the things, big dogs, little dogs. You know, it was just a better plan than.
Well, we went through, Senator, we went through a period a few years ago when we restricted by statute some of the interactions between shelters and facilities that had to do primarily with euthanasia. So I think folks just got nervous, but Dr. Gibbons has been absolutely wonderful in this.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Next.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. We support Senator Stanley's bill and look forward to working with some of the releasing and animal welfare agencies to find homes and forever loving homes for our dogs. So we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Cindy Buckmaster. I'm directly involved in biomedical research and laboratory animal care for over 25 years, and also founded the very first, from the research community, a rehoming organization for research dogs called Homes for Animal Heroes. So I completely on board with this. I think these animals lose a lot for us and our well-being as well as our pets, and they deserve to have the best possible life we can provide them afterward. And I also want to say that, you know, we keep this confidential, but we've been partners with Envigo since before this, so they have been adopting animals out through us, and now that opportunity is expanded for the number of animals they have, I think that's a good thing. So I definitely support
you do biomedical research.
Well, I did in the beginning. I'm a neurobiologist, but then I ran one of the largest laboratory animal care programs in the nation, so I know a lot about how animals have to be cared for in research settings and how they're actually cared for. But we can talk about that any other time you like.
Okay, well, thank you.
I appreciate the bill.
Thank you very much. It's nice to hear from a different professional perspective. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
when we had that discussion with them in October, they were discussing, and we've had those subsequent discussions with Mr. Harkness and others. They do engage in that in other ways in other parts of the country as well. And what we really want to do is create a pipeline. You know, and it's not passing the trash. It's and as she just said, I think we owe it to them for what they do for us. If that's
now we need to tighten all this up and explore every kind of opportunity we can to do that. It's what civilized people do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Any questions from the committee? Could we have a motion, Senator Hackworth? Have a motion.
I move that we support this bill. That we
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pass the bill. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Hackworth? Senator Marsden?
Aye.
Ayes 3, no 0.
Ayes 3, no 0. Senator Stanley, the bill reports.
Thank you, Mr.
On
Chairman.
to your final offering today.
Mercifully.
604.
We wouldn't have a committee without Senator.
I know. I give you relevance.
Well, yay for companion animals. It brings these things to us.
You know. Senate Bill 604 brings in line, quite frankly, and makes those experimental agencies or agencies that breed dog for experimentation, makes them now fall under the animal cruelty laws that we have in the criminal code of the statute, criminal code statutes in the Code of Virginia. The bill itself clarifies that dog and cats in possession of those entities that or a person who breeds dogs for sale or transfer to animal research facilities are considered to be companion animals. Members of the committee, up to this point in time, believe it or not, it's a beagle, and we exempted entities that bred these animals or experimented on these animals from being considered companion animals. What happens in there, or let's say in that environment that we saw in the USDA, or even in the videotapes that we saw from PETA, if we were to do that, some of those things, not all of those things, but some of those things, I would be charged with a crime, animal cruelty. Number one, I think it's important to understand that if then an entity or a person understands that even a animal bred for experimentation or an animal that's experimented on is a companion animal, and that you fall under the Companion Animal Protection Criminal Code, then we're going to have that anvil over their head that's going to make them do better. We create criminal laws not to stop criminal conduct, and certainly doesn't stop criminal conduct that already occurs. It is to deter criminal conduct in human beings, because we hopefully can govern ourselves, but when we can't, then there are laws that govern us that conform behavior in ways that is civilized to society. This is that bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Senator Stanley, any questions from the committee? Senator Stanley? Those in favor of the bill, please step forward and...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Holly Hazard on behalf of the Virginia Federation of Humane Societies and the coalition of 40 organizations that are supporting protecting beagles in the state. We strongly support the bill. A beagle doesn't get to choose whether, or a dog does not get to choose whether it goes into a loving home or goes into a research facility. Beagles in particular have been bred for thousands of years to be docile, loving, caring, attentive animals, and it is particularly cruel to have an animal who's been bred to be docile and to be loving put in a laboratory situation and then not afforded basic protections under our anti-cruelty statute. Mm-hmm. The allegations that have been put forth with the organization that we're talking about, Envigo, have talked about 6 inches of fecal material, dogs getting their legs put through the wire of cages and having their legs broken and then not treated, horrible dental work that has been ignored. If my dog in my home is subject to the anti-cruelty statutes of Virginia, so should any animal that's in a research facility. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Holly. Anyone else care to speak in support of the bill?
Hi again. This is Daphne with PETA. I just wanted to echo my colleague Holly's comments and thank Senator Stanley for this really important bill, because these dogs deserve protection regardless of the purpose for which they are bred. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, he has to explain the reenactment clause. That's an amendment to this bill.
Yeah, it's just the same language.
All right, but he needs to say that.
All right, there we are.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tabitha Treelor for the Richmond SPCA. I want to echo the comments of my colleague Holly Hazard, and we support this bill and ask that you move to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Molly?
Thank you, Molly Armas, Humane Society of the United States. We strongly support this bill, and we believe that it should be enacted right away. Thank you.
Okay.
I know, you're not used to seeing me up here, are you?
I'm going to go play the lottery today. I got Sharon, I got you. Wow.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name's Heidi Krosky. I'm with the Virginia Animal Owners Alliance, and he's used to me on the opposite side of his bills. But we do think that this is a solution to the problem, and we ask that you support it. Thank you.
Sharon.
I must have died and gone to doggy heaven today.
I'm not sure we let you in quite.
Yeah.
Really?
Sharon Adams, Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. Amen.
Okay, thank you so much.
And Katie Hellebush with VVMA, and I'll ditto the amen.
So much.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, all of our releasing agencies, pet shops and the like breeders and personal individuals are subjected to the companion animal cruelty statutes and must conform their behavior in order to avoid arrest, prosecution, and conviction. So, this is just bringing them in line with what everybody else on this planet does, and if they treat them well, humanely, then that's not going to be an issue. And it may not be the company itself. It may be an individual that has been hired by the company unknowingly that abuses the animal, and then that person should be held accountable. Now, having said that, Mr. Chairman, and having had these discussions as I've lobbied my bill both on this committee, within my own caucus, and in the full committee, I understand that, again, this is the anvil over the head kind of deal, that the best way to gain bipartisan and near, if not unanimous support through the Senate, and hopefully to get it through the House, especially after we've looked at what the House has done to some of these bills, is that the suggestion has been, and I've accepted it, is that there be a reenactment clause. And with that reenactment clause, I will guarantee that I'm coming back next year.
Thank you so much, Senator Stanley.
I'd move to pass the bill with reenactment.
The motion is to
Second.
pass the bill with a reenactment clause. We have a second. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Hackworth?
Aye.
Senator Marsden?
Aye.
Ayes 3, no 0.
No zero. The bill reports.
Thank you, members of the committee. It's
to the full
always
committee.
a pleasure.
Senator Boyskow, Senate Bill 442.
Afternoon. Let me sit there. Okay, I've got two bills, so 442. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
All righty, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. This will go well. This would be a companion to Senator Stanley's bill that you just passed a minute ago. It would require anyone who breeds dogs or cats for animal testing in facilities to report information to the state veterinarian on a monthly basis. And it would report the number of animals in the facility, the number of births of the dogs and cats at the breeder's facility in the prior month, the number of dogs and cats acquired than by birth at the facility in the prior month, the number of deaths of dogs and cats at the facility in the prior month, and whether each death was assisted or unassisted. If the death was unassisted by a human being, obviously, the report shall include the cause of death. A list of dogs and cats sold, transferred, released to domestic or international animal testing facilities, including a separate list for the sale, transfer, or release of the dogs or cats to animal testing facilities within the Commonwealth. Or finally, any other disposition of a cat or a dog in the prior month not captured by the requirement of subdivisions 4 and 5. We know that Envigo's Beagle breeding facility in Cumberland County was found to have committed 39 violations of the Federal Animal Welfare Act as of the last USDA inspection that occurred on October 2021. For example, and we've talked about this a little bit, dead puppies found drowned in drains, an overpowering fecal odor from up to 6 inches of fecal matter piled in a gutter. According to the USDA's July 21 report, over 300 deaths of puppies in Cumberland's facilities were attributed to unknown causes. Yet there has been no effort by Envigo to determine the cause of the death or how to prevent future deaths, some say. I've had some conversations with them today, and they do tell me they are working hard to try to improve the situation, and I know that they really care. And I know that everybody in Virginia does. I'm joined here today by advocates, and I hope it is the pleasure to report 442 to the committee, and happy to take any questions, but I think the advocates.
Thank you, Senator Boysko, for your work on this. Any questions from the committee?
No, it's an excellent bill.
Yeah, I think so as well. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of the bill? If you could just come forward, state your name and your organization for the record, and I think we're in pretty good shape here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator Marsden and members of the committee. Tabitha Treelor for the Virginia Coalition for Beagle Protection and the Richmond SPCA. We support this bill just as we did SB 88 and believe these are very compatible. As I mentioned before, these are similar to reporting requirements for releasing agencies in the state of Virginia, and this is accountability that we believe will benefit the state and citizens of Virginia, particularly that there was a nearly 9% mortality rate for puppies revealed in the July USDA inspection report, and how many number of months have gone by before the next inspection report is released. This is necessary on a state level on a monthly basis, and we would appreciate it.
And I think what this does is it keeps dogs from becoming anonymous.
Right.
They may not have a name, but they do have a number.
Yep.
And that number needs to be tracked. And that's, I think a critical thing here.
Could not have said it better, Mr. Senator. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sharon.
Sharon Adams, Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. We support the bill. Every shelter that I represent, 160, do this and keep these records, whether they have a budget of $75,000 a year or a budget of $300,000 a year, but none of them have a budget of $500 million. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Daphne Nekminovich with PETA. We wholeheartedly support the bill and thank Senator Boysko for her efforts on this issue. Thank you, Senator.
Daphne. Katie?
And Katie Hellebush with VVMA, and we continue to promote and advocate for a meaningful solution. Thank you.
Here we go. Anyone else? All right. The bill is before us, Senate Bill 442. Do we have a motion?
I move that the committee recommend passage.
We have a motion to pass.
Second.
We have a second. Would you call the roll?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Hackworth?
Aye.
Senator Marsden?
Aye.
Ayes 3, no 0.
Ayes 3, no 0. The bill reports to the full committee with a favorable recommendation.
Excellent.
Senator
Thank you so
Boysko, your
much.
second bill
Yes.
is Senate Bill 457.
457, yes, sir. Thank you. So you will remember 2 years ago, right in this very room, I believe, we considered this exact same bill, where we had found that there were significant violations and real problems at the breeding facility in Cumberland County. And as I recall, we discussed it. This was reported to the full committee with unanimous support. And in the conversations and deliberations at the full committee, we brought the stakeholders to the table, and there was a conversation surrounding their interest in doing better. And you and I both participated in those conversations, and we were told that there would be inspections within a 24-hour give them 24 hours of notice, and they were going to clean everything up. Unfortunately, as we have heard all morning long, that didn't happen. You all did go and inspect, I understand, but it was a prearranged meeting, and I know that they're trying to continue, but 5,000 dogs and 25 people does not make oversight of a facility. I believe that second chances are a great thing. And so before I even go into this, I have an amendment that I would like to offer as goodwill in trying to give them another chance. And that bill would be that. The amendment would be that the bill that I'm presenting today would only go onto effect if there were a subsequent serious violation found by the USDA, and the dogs would be adopted out, that they would no longer be able to use. And I would ask that the committee consider that. I have had conversations with the stakeholders, and again, we all know that they are trying to do better, and I appreciate the earnestness that they are approaching this with. But I also say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And we've had yet another, since last summer, there has been another investigation and another set of violations found that were pretty horrible.
So, well, thank you, Senator Boysko. This matter, in terms of how we deal with Envigo, we've put in a number of things, in place to begin to exercise that kind of control. And I appreciate the amendment. It puts it off. Words mean something, and what we need to do is to work on the amendment so that we get it right. I don't want to put the company under the gun. We have my bill coming up, which takes a different approach, and there could end up being compatibility here. I don't know. We'll have to review that, and I think we need to be work with a DLS staff, Lisa, to come up with the right language. The sword of Damocles can be a good thing, and
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, and Lisa.
Yes, certainly.
Lisa has a comment.
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering if you could restate the intent of the amendment.
Absolutely. So the bill that I have in front of us says that no person shall breed or raise a dog for purpose of selling or transferring a dog or its offspring to an animal testing facility located, one, outside the United States or located within the United States for animal testing not required or research not required by federal law or regulation, and that would be a Class 1 misdemeanor. So what I'm saying is we add an amendment that would say this bill would only take effect upon subsequent USDA serious violations, and we could identify exactly what serious violation means, which I think we could do that, and that would the dogs would be adopted out. Those dogs who would no longer be used for experimentation. And I would be open to a reenactment clause. I would be open to any sort of a reasonable accommodation to give them some time to.
That was my question, Mr.
Take care of the dogs. I think this is a reasonable.
Yeah, that could be a solution. With a reenactment clause, one of the concerns I had about this bill, and I've discussed it with you, is the Class 3 misdemeanor. Who draws the Class 3 misdemeanor? Class 1 misdemeanor. That puts somebody in jail for up to a year. And, is it an out-of-state owner of the company? Is it the manager of the facility? Is it the person who loads the dog onto the truck? It becomes very unclear. And usually in these kinds of business matters, we don't allow for criminal penalties unless it hits a fraud statute or something.
So,
and I think it's a difficult path.
I hear you.
To go down.
So, Mr. Chair, I would also, since we just have considered Senator Stanley's bill that would make them companion animals and subject to the same kinds of restrictions, we could strike that last sentence to make it clear so that we don't have that confusion or ambiguity. I think that would be a reasonable.
So, Mr. Chairman, I will move some amendments for the patron.
Thank you.
So, what we just discussed, we're going to strike the last sentence. A violation of this section is a Class 1 misdemeanor. I think we are going to add language that states if, in fact, upon the identification of a further violation, I think we need a time frame in there that the prohibition of selling or transferring of the dog shall cease within 6 months after the identification of a violation.
Mr. Chair.
And then do we need, I will ask General Counsel, do I also need then a reenactment clause with my two amendments, Lisa?
Yes.
That is, I think, what is being requested.
But did you hear my full amendment, which was I allowed 6 months after the identification of a further violation that, in other words, this would go into effect 6 months after a violation had been identified. Is that not comfortable, or do you want a reenactment clause?
The reenactment clause would fit in with our normal process.
Okay, then we'll do a reenactment clause. Mine was a
Okay.
little more aggressive.
Okay, do I have so I have a motion on those amendments. Lisa, do you feel like you have those? Okay, and so we have a motion to accept the amendments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the amendments, the bill as amended is before us, and the recommendation is to pass as amended, which includes a reenactment clause. And I think this gives us,
And if there's an identification of a further violation, that kicks them into very bad
this bill,
standing.
what the ultimate outcome for how we deal with Envigo is still going to be a long journey. The House has taken some different approaches to this, and it is. I still think that what I'm about to, bring before you is the best way to handle this situation. And
How would your approach differ from the approach we're just talking about, Mr.
Well, I'll get into that with the bill in just a moment. But at this point in time,
May I present the bill? I mean, we've just talked about the amendment, but I have people here to speak on it, and I would just like to go over what it does and why.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. The bill, okay, so SB 457 will prohibit any person from breeding a dog or a cat for express purpose of producing offspring for use in research, experimentation, or testing that is not required pursuant to federal law or regulation, or for the sale of manufacture to institutions of higher learning or contract testing outside of the United States. This will not impact the use of dogs in pharmaceutical testing, for instance. We know that Envigo, who we've already talked about for now more than an hour, and we talked about it 2 years ago, is a breeding facility that keeps close to 5,000 beagle dogs and puppies in what have been reported in factual evidence by the USDA and PETA in unsanitary cramped kennels producing by their own account, 500 beagles, puppies each month for sale to labs across the world, despite having inadequate number of staff to maintain basic standards of health and care. And I do hope that they are improving this, and I hope that what we're doing today in concert will improve everything.
And we will, I think, be hearing from Envigo here very shortly.
I would just like to review some of the inspections. They've been, in July, right around the time that you were there, Envigo was cited for 26 violations of federal animal welfare acts. Just 3 months later, another inspection in October, just to follow up on the violations from July. 13 more violations were found. 11 of these were repeat, meaning that the facility could not manage to fix the issues in 3 months, including basic sanitation, staffing issues, provision of veterinary care, and prevention of fight and injuries. And I understand that during the pandemic, everybody's having trouble with staff, but we don't bite off more than we can chew, and sometimes we have to reduce the scope of what we're doing in order to do a good job at that. Violations included, and you just think about, if this was your dog, you would not accept this. I've tried to have a conversation with other people, and they're like, I can't hear it. It's too horrible. Violations included are not limited to dogs and puppies with infections, sores, and skin lesions, deprived of veterinary care, fighting among kennel mates, pulling each other's ears and limbs through cages, and leading up to injury and death. Old, dried, and moldy feces in dog enclosures, which we talked about 2 years ago. Up to 6 inches of feces piled in gutters. One kennel with at least 9 or 10 piles of feces and an overpowering fecal odor. Beyond even the horrific conditions, it's bad science to buy research animals from a facility that's so filthy. The USDA noted it is evident that the facility is not spot cleaning or sanitizing effectively to prevent accumulations or reduce disease hazard. We need stronger protections for dogs used in laboratories, and 457 will do that. I'm joined here today by advocates who are here to say that, we've got to not only as Senator Stanley so beautifully stated, that we've got to protect these dogs. But if we're using these for research, we need to know that they are in good condition, that they would have an efficacy. The results of their research would have a result that would be reliable, and we just don't see that. According to the USDA, 59,401 dogs were used in research tests and experiments. An additional 6,387 dogs were held in experimentation facilities but not used. And, I could go on about this. There is huge concern in the community. Most people who hear about this, I've heard, people responding as though they can't accept even listening to this conversation because it's so horrifying. We make the laws in Virginia. If somebody else was doing this, we've done this for dogs who are left out in the cold, who, are chained up. We have, and with this community, we have banned cosmetic testing with this group. We have said that we are not going to do painful animal testing in our facilities. We've really taken a stand, and we can do that today. I'm willing to give them another chance. I think that, Senator Marsden has really helped me go down a path to say we give them another chance, but don't fool me again, right? Like, let's put some teeth in this, because putting it off for another year is really just delaying, in my opinion, the problem. We need to take action now. And I appreciate that. I know you have as much passion for this as I do, and you've been working for so long. I would love to have some resolution on this that saves the animals.
Thank you so much, Senator Boysko. It is a vexing problem, and we've been trying to work on a solution, and I'll explain what that will be, which is the one I hope that the Senate will take going forward. However, like several of Senator Stanley's bill, having a reenactment clause here allows Envigo to know what lies down the road for unsuccessful performance. We don't know what the USDA is going to do. That's a puzzle palace as to whether they, how aggressively they take actions. I've seen evidence before in this committee when we're dealing with Asha the elephant that no matter how many times they find problems, the USDA does not take action. And I was, I think, naive in thinking that just getting a voluntary inspection from the veterinarian, I just didn't know the scope and the size of this facility when I put that legislation in place. And, they went out, he looked around, it was what it was, and it really didn't accomplish much. And I hope to be presenting in a moment a more comprehensive solution that we can take to the House and sort this out. Senator Favola.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think for the purposes of the public's understanding and my understanding, I want a better explanation of the regulatory process and why there's simply no teeth in the regulatory process.
Okay.
I mean, does USDA, do they do fines? Do they require a corrective action? Do they put the license, a provisional license in there? What kind of tools are our regulators not currently using?
I do not know the answer to that question, Senator Favola. I assume they have some fairly great powers to take someone's license away. As to whether they choose to do that, that's we can't talk about what the USDA is or isn't going to do, what kind of powers they do or don't have. We have responsibilities as Virginians.
And there's no way I want to relinquish us from our responsibilities. My question is, given the testimony we just heard from the patron, it was very, very hurtful to me anyways, and I'm wondering why USDA has not stepped in to take steps, or why the state has not. Obviously, we have to do a better job. Maybe we have to strengthen our legislation considerably.
And that is certainly the goal here. And I will explain, the bill I have in a moment, which is something that we've negotiated with Envigo in our two visits, and I'll get into that in a moment. But Senator Boysko has Senate Bill 457 in front of us. Anyone in the audience care to speak in favor of the bill?
Good morning, Chairman Marsden, Hello again, members of the subcommittee. If I may answer Senator Favola's question, the USDA does have the authority to suspend the facility's license for 21 days. It does have the authority to confiscate animals who are currently suffering. They have not exercised the authority, and I cannot tell you why, because they do exercise that authority and have recently in similar cases. So the facility is known for appealing its inspection reports, which is why it takes so many months for it to post. But I did want to just make a couple of points. One is that the animal welfare stakeholder community is united on this issue. I'm speaking not just for PETA, but for the Virginia Coalition for Beagle Protection. I just wanted to get in front of a couple of points. I am surprised that we haven't heard any explanation for the horrific and unlawful conditions. I think, Chairman Marsden, you made a good point. It's not easy to get cited by the USDA. So to manage to get 39 violations, 19 of those critical or direct, is quite a feat. And I would say if we are speaking about serious violations from a legal language perspective, the terminology is direct or critical or repeat. That would be my input on what would trigger Senate Bill 457. I understand that COVID caused a surplus of dogs, which was part of the reason for the crowded conditions. You know, COVID hit us 2 years ago, and that's 730 days. A dog's average gestation period is 63 days. So that's 11 cycles of breeding that the facility, which is part of a $500 million a year company, a reduction or suspension of production would have made good business sense, but the company knowingly continued to produce 500 puppies every month, experienced an astronomical puppy mortality rate, and was cited for that, and I won't go back into that again. So when they tell you that they were affected by COVID, and that's the problem and the reason for all these issues, we all had to deal with COVID. Veterinarians had to deal with COVID. Shelters had to deal with COVID. The workforce is affected across the board, as you guys know. The veterinary profession is seeing record staffing shortages. So veterinarians reduced hours, limited services, suspended new clients. They did not choose to reduce quality of care to continue making money. They reduced quantity. So our question is, why couldn't a $545 million a year company do that? And I won't go back into the USDA violations, but I did want to share one last bit before I conclude. According to the National Research Council's Committee on Cost of Payment for Animal Research, quote, adequate staffing is essential to provide high-quality animal care to ensure animal health and well-being, to comply with regulatory guidelines, and to retain public confidence. That's basic industry language that this facility disregarded. Thank you so much for taking action, and thank you for your commitment to fixing this. All of you, I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Daphne. If you could just step forward and give your organization and whether you support the bill.
Sharon Adams, Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. I do support the bill, but I also want to remind this committee that yesterday we heard testimony from a retired USDA inspector in the House committee. And it's my understanding that that former USDA inspector was very familiar with Envigo from years past. Now, Mr. Chairman, you and I were probation and parole officers, and we believe in second chances and redemption. But we also know that when there are repeat offenders, punishment must occur. We've been dealing with this for 2 years. USDA has been dealing with this for a lot longer, and they've been in business for 60 years. If they wanted to fix this thing, they didn't learn anything in 60 years. Sometimes you may be just either too unwilling or too dumb to fix it. If we do not hold their feet to the fire, I believe that their experience has been, you go away. Okay. So I ask you to support Senator Boysko. Don't like the reenactments. Let's get on with it.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Molly?
Molly with the HSUS, we strongly support this bill. Dog testing, the use of dogs in laboratories is on its way out. There's obviously still federal laws and regulations that apply, but we really appreciate Senator Boysko's leadership on this. So
Thank you, Molly.
Tabitha Treelor for the Richmond SPCA. Just want to affiliate our remarks with those of our colleagues with the Virginia Coalition for Beagle Protection, and thank Senator Boysko for her leadership on this, and we're strongly in favor of this bill being enacted right away.
Thank you.
Katie Hellebusch with VVMA, and you've heard lots of great testimony on this bill, and Daphne did a great job of describing the vet's reaction to COVID and all the extraordinary measures they've taken as well. And again, I just want to reiterate, I sound like a broken record. We just want a meaningful solution to take care of the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think you've had discussions here. We've adopted the amendments.
Mr. Chair, would you have, I guess my amendment didn't pass since I had a trigger and then a closure in 6 months, and it seemed to be the desire of the committee to go with a reenactment clause. So does the amendment language, I know we took off the last sentence, but does the amendment language have any trigger at all, so at least we're informed?
That is, the plan that we've put in place that I hope we pass from the Senate does not involve direct triggers, because that gets very, very tricky to determine, whether it's a time trigger, whether it's a number of violations trigger, what's appropriate, what isn't, what constitutes that. We haven't been in that kind of business to be able to put something like that in the code, and that's my concern with triggers. And I'll explain in a moment why, what will be the remedy, if you will, for failure of Envigo to deal appropriately when I present the bill.
And I want to hear your bill too, and I've read it. I do think we should be, regardless of what happens to Senator Boysko's bill, I think we should be sending a letter to our state regulatory body, really outlining.
Well, that is
their responsibilities to.
Yeah, that would be, VDAX, and the bill, will certainly engage them in this, but without getting into the next bill, this is the reporting mechanisms and such will be coming back to folks who can take action and that's the General Assembly next year, but at any rate, we'll get into that at the proper time. But the bill as amended right now, if you could report that, Lisa, and tell us what your understanding is, so we get this right.
Sure, and Mr. Chair, I would just like to, for the record, remind you, so we had the agreement that VDAX would go within 24 hours. It didn't happen. I exchanged emails with the Deputy Commissioner in August of 2020. It was not.
We need to articulate that again.
It did not happen. So I think some sort of follow-up where they understand that we are very serious about this, that we are not going to turn our heads again, is imperative here. We've got to have some meaningful oversight of this situation.
That's no problem. I will write such a letter, Senator Vola. You and I can talk about that. Lisa, could you report the bill as your understanding, its amendment?
This is my understanding, so I stand correct. This is all kind of conceptual. We would put a reenactment clause on it, just a basic reenact it. 2023 session needs to act. We would strike that last sentence with the criminal penalty. And then the part that's still more conceptual would be, I think what you're saying is that everybody would be starting from ground zero right now. But then if you had a subsequent, after a set date, so after July 1, 2023 with the reenactment, then if you had, and we'll have to carve out a direct violation, a critical violation of something, then that company with the violation could not.
Correct. Right. That would be the intent. That is the intent, and I think it's a reasonable trigger to hold them accountable and to make sure that they understand that we are serious and that this cannot continue. And they have the ability to control that.
So I'm going to move that we report the bill, Senator Boysko's bill, as amended.
Okay, we have a motion.
I would second.
Do you have a second? Call the roll.
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Hackworth? Senator Marsden?
Aye.
Ayes 3, noes 0.
Ayes 3, noes 0. The bill reports to be reenacted, and I think we're in in good shape there to deal with things.
Appreciate your
I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, we are going to do a letter in the meanwhile.
We will do that. That doesn't need to be in legislation, but you and I can work on that to
Thank you.
To deal with to deal with the issue. All right, Senator Favola.
Yes.
Go pass the gavel.
Sure, where are you going?
And I am.
You're going to present a bill. Okay.
I'm going to present a
Okay.
bill.
That's Senate Bill 535 before us?
It is.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Stanley and I, went out during the previous session and saw conditions and had discussions with Envigo to deal with the ongoing the problems that had been reported. In July, USDA did an inspection. It was not good. It came back in October, 3 months later, and did another inspection. We were privy to that when Senator Stanley and I went out on November 16th. We were privy to the fact that there had been 2 inspections, and while we didn't know all the details, we knew that the second one was also problematic. This November is when we sat down for a number of hours and sort of hammered out, an idea for how the Commonwealth of Virginia would deal with the ongoing problems at Envigo. Now, the House has taken a very different approach, but this is one that I think is sound, and I will put it forth to you that what we will do is require any animal testing facility to pay a fee that will pay for its entirety of an inspector who would work under VDACs, under the state veterinarian, to be a full-time inspector of this particular facility. Full-time, 24/7, 365 days a year, having access to whatever they need to report back to 3 entities. First, the chairman of the agriculture committees in the House and the Senate. Secondly, a subcommittee chaired by, or a committee, advisory committee chaired by the state veterinarian that will include a member of the Humane Society, another veterinarian, and 2 citizens from the community in Cumberland. I want to make sure that there is, some ongoing attachment there to these folks, because these are jobs. Somebody said to me once that, well, there aren't very many jobs out there. Well, they're an important job if it's yours. And I feel the Commonwealth has an obligation to get this right, and that's why I put this bill forward. And the
Mr. Chairman, do you have amendment language, or is there amendment
No.
language up on the?
No, I don't.
So you're just explaining it?
Just explaining the bill, and the concept here is that if they're, as the reports come in, they're going to be able to look at any standard they choose to examine this facility or inspect this facility on, be they USDA standards, be they Virginia standards. We're still doing, and they haven't been completed yet, from a bill I did a couple years ago, they have not completed the regulations for the operation of pet stores. That is still waiting to happen. I think this July they're due. Is that right, Molly? And so that will fit into this as well. I didn't want to try to establish standards for research facilities. That's beyond the scope of, I think, what we can do. But I think with being able to look at USDA standards and these reporting mechanisms, back through VDACs, is that the legislature, this body, starting with this committee, can make a determination as to whether we want them to continue. And there won't be a pass, fail, or anything else. It'll be in our judgment. Have they taken this seriously? Have they made the changes? Have they done what they're supposed to do? And that will, make a determination as to whether we allow them to continue. Just to let you know the process that we went through, I met with PETA, the Humane Society, and the Federation, and we had coffee and sat down and discussed the bill. They were in favor of it. I gave the bill to them for edits, and I appreciate the fact that they edited it and are in support. I understand that you can be in support of 2 things: one that provides a second chance, and one that pretty much closes the door on the facility. I appreciate that. Your passion is noted, but Virginia has been responsible for ignoring this mess for a long time, and I'm not going to have that stain on the Commonwealth. We need to get it right. I don't want this facility to move out, go to a state that doesn't regulate at all, and have the same things happen all over again. We have the responsibility to try to fix it here. If we can't, they're gone, and this is a mechanism to make sure that there are no staged events, that this person can drop in at 2 a.m. in the morning, can be there for Christmas. At any one point in time, they can come in, and they will be reporting back to the advisory group, to the chairman of the committees, and to their employer at VDAX. And we will continue to work with VDAX, and I think Senator Favola had a good idea to get a letter to them and to tell them how we expect them to deal with this inspector and to treat this seriously and to make sure that the inspector is working in a way that can get things done. That is the bill. That is the direction we chose. We have made a commitment, I did, to Envigo, that this is the direction we would go in. I don't control what goes on in the House. That's their choice as to what to do. This bill has a ways to go. It will go into conference probably at some point, and we will work this out. I don't run this place. I just put some things in motion, and it'll be up for the two bodies to decide the best course of action. But I did want to give Envigo an opportunity to step before this group of people who care about these things, to explain their plans for how to meet the requirements of this thing, so that we never have to do this again, and how they feel that they can operate under this kind of scrutiny, and what their plans are. And I've seen some of them already in place. We saw that in November, changes that were being made, and certainly we had every verbal indication that they were taking this seriously. So if there's a representative from Envigo here, please step forward, and
we will be taking testimony for those both in favor of this bill and
right.
those in opposition.
That's it. Well, this is I presume an in favor. Senator Favola.
Yes, this is in favor. All right. So, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you
What's
today.
your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Carmen Wilborn, and I'm the Vice President of North American Operations in Envigo. Envigo is the second largest breeder of animals in research and the second largest breeder of canines for research. I've been in the industry for over 35 years, with 15 years responsible for the oversight and ensuring the proper and lawful operations of animal facilities across the globe. Dogs have been crucial to the research on drugs to treat diseases such as cancer, diabetes, asthma, arthritis, COPD, and dementia, to name a few. Canine research also contributes to veterinary care for dogs, including the treatment of heartworm, distemper, and parvovirus. Our dogs are also provided to veterinary schools for our future veterinarians. I am now responsible for ensuring the proper and lawful operations of our facilities in North America, including the canine facility in Cumberland. We at Envigo, and I personally, take that responsibility seriously and maintain a commitment to the highest animal welfare standards. We have the utmost respect for the USDA and their remit to enforce animal welfare regulations. Therefore, we were deeply disappointed in the results of our USDA inspection for Cumberland in July and October of this year. As you may recall, this facility received an unfavorable inspection in 2017 prior to Envigo's ownership. At that time, the issues outlined were corrected, and the site received subsequent clean inspections with no non-compliant items identified in 2018 and 2019. As was done previously, we are working hard to fix the current issues, and I've already taken many steps towards doing so, which I will outline shortly. But first, allow me to explain how we got to this point. When the COVID-19 pandemic began in early 2020, many of our clients who buy dogs from the Cumberland facility suspended or reduced their operations. As a result, fewer dogs were purchased, and the number of dogs on site greatly increased. We faced a stark choice: either euthanize the older animals, as USDA regulations permit us to do so, or continue to care for the dogs until we could find a home, a use for them outside our facility, and we chose the latter. Like most all businesses, COVID has also resulted in a reduced number of employees on site through attrition, illness, and people just unable to come to work on site. COVID travel restrictions initially limited our ability to bring technicians to Cumberland from other sites. That combination of more dogs and fewer workers led to some temporary lapses and challenges in the quality of animal care that we've always offered and are committed to offering. We believe that's what's led to the disappointing recent inspections. We recognized the potentially negative effects of COVID on our operations rather quickly and started to take steps to design to address those issues. We did stop breeding. We first reduced and then stopped breeding as our clients continued to limit or reduce the number of orders. Immediately after the July 2021 inspection report, we took additional steps to address the specific problems identified in that report. We continue to focus all efforts on remedying the challenges COVID-19 has caused us. And although we acted swiftly, many of the corrective actions take some time and several months to implement and see the results. That's why the second inspection report that was released last Friday from an inspection in October 2021, just 3 months after the first, in July, still identified problems that had not been fully addressed but showed improvement. In order to fix the imbalance between the number of dogs and the number of employees, we've taken proactive steps to increase the number of employees and decrease the number of dogs on site. On the recruiting and the retention initiatives, starting salaries increased to $16 an hour. For our current employees, the salaries increased by at least $2.50 an hour. We've added a $5,000 sign-on bonus for all open positions in Cumberland. We have employee referral bonuses. We had an open interview day yesterday where we had 15 individuals confirmed. We added a dedicated recruiter for Cumberland. We bought a quarter-page ad in the Farmville Herald that ran on the 26th of January. Higher Purpose has been instituted with a spotlight on Cumberland. Spotify advertising Cumberland positions, paid sponsorship on Indeed, and posted positions directly to Virginia Tech and University of Virginia Extension, and has been extended to other local universities through Handshake. Until we're able to hire enough people, we've been bringing workers from other Envigo sites to Virginia. Additionally, senior management, including me, has been on site frequently to work alongside local management to address the challenges as rapidly as possible. I would like to add that the number of employees that are quoted are full-time employees. We also use AtWorks Temp Agency and have a number of temporary employees that are on site working on husbandry in the kennels.
What is your, at the time of the inspection, what was your employment level? At the July inspection, what was your employment level? If all positions had been filled, how many people did you have?
So if all positions would be filled, we would have 50 people at the Cumberland facility.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We've also taken many steps to reduce the number of dogs, adoptions through several agencies. Another 150 dogs are in the process of being adopted in the coming days.
Excuse me.
Sure.
I do have
Senator Favola.
I'm sorry. Is there a standard, a staffing standard, and has Envigo been meeting that standard?
So we did time studies on how much time it takes to clean and care for the animals, and we use that as a metric, if you will, for the number of staff that are needed for the inventory on site, and that's where we come to our staffing levels. And so when we're below our required staffing levels, that's where we're bringing people from other Envigo sites, using temporary agencies, and to support the local team.
Yes.
Senator Hackworth.
Are you chairing this or am I?
So
this
what
is true.
the-
I gave it over to you. I'm sorry.
So what is the amount of dogs that you typically will have in this situation? I know you said that they grew because a lot of your clients did not purchased dogs, they canceled contracts or suspended them. So what would this facility typically, how many beagles would this facility typically have?
So in our non-breeding stock, we had an additional over 1,600 animals. And so we would run closer to about 3,300 animals.
30, okay. And so you're saying that at the most employees that you've had there has been 50 employees, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so that ratio, I guess, is that standard for Envigo to have that many employees for that amount of beagles? And all your other operations as well?
So at all our other operations, it's a different metric based on the species that we're working with. But again, we do almost what time metric studies are to see what the job takes and how many employees are needed to fulfill all of our legal responsibilities for the welfare of the animals.
I'm going to ask you to take just a few more minutes to
Sure.
complete your presentation. We're happy to take your written document as well.
Okay.
But I think there may be some speakers here that want to come forward.
Okay. Really, all the steps that we're taking to reduce the number are aimed at avoiding euthanizing our animals and finding them a safe and loving home, as we mentioned with Senator Stanley's bill. We have reduced our non-breed stock from around the 1,650, that was the excess inventory, to less than 700 now. And with the additional 150, we'll be in the low 500s, and we continue to work with Sue Bell at Homeward Trails and other organizations to continue to adopt. We've also taken numerous measures to address the specific animal welfare issues identified in the inspection reports. We've completed over 2,700 veterinary exams. We've completed almost 2,000 dental exams. It's really been an all-hands-on-deck exercise. Both me, our global head of veterinary medicine, contract veterinarians, and contract veterinary technicians have been on site for weeks completing all of the exams. Procedures to better track animals in need of veterinary support have been implemented, employees retrained, software systems upgraded, increased cleaning efforts. The physical plant has been upgraded by improving flooring and cages, whelping, cleaned and sprayed rusty panels and gates. So you can see some of the housing that our animals are in. So you can see when the USDA commented about gaps in flooring, you can see the boarding that is used as a short-term mitigation effort. You can see the stainless steel panels. We are changing all of our galvanized chain link to stainless steel and are ready to place an order mid-February to finish the site. You can see the whelping cages, and all of our animals are in run-style housing with the grid flooring. So urine and fecal material go through the grids. We do a rough hose every day, and then we do a full sanitization with hydrogen peroxide cleansers to disinfect on a regular basis as well. You can also see some of the investments that we've made. We've got with our play yards, and then one of the pictures of some of the dogs that we rehomed at an event that they were being shown at. And I'd just like to show the great condition of the dogs. Over the past few years, Envigo has invested more than $3 million to improve the Cumberland facility, including canine housing, heaters, play yards, and various lab equipment and an x-ray lab. This year, we've been given $5 million to invest in the facility. We are committed to transparency as we work to improve the facility in Cumberland, and we were honored to have Senator Stanley and Marsden visit the facility. The state veterinarian has been out to see how we care for the dogs, and we would be happy to arrange a tour for any lawmaker who wishes to come. We welcome expanded state oversight and have expressed to Senator Marsden our support of having an oversight officer who works for the state veterinarian who will have full, unfettered access to our site in order to reassure the people of Virginia that Envigo is committed to the highest standards of animal welfare. but we firmly believe that legislation designed to limit the clients we can sell to or force us to disclose commercially sensitive proprietary information is not the right way to ensure the proper welfare of animals. Legislation that is indirectly designed to put the Cumberland, Virginia facility out of business benefits no one. It loses high-paying jobs for Virginians, removes the economic engine and tax base that Envigo provides to Cumberland County and the Commonwealth, and puts Virginia at a disadvantage to other states that create a friendlier environment for critical medical research. Furthermore, as been stated, it raises the possibility that more dogs will be bred in other states and even other countries in conditions that do not meet the welfare requirements of Virginia, and that is, after all, our common goal to improve the welfare of all the dogs used in important medical research. Some animal activists will always question the need for the use of animals in medical research, and we understand and accept that. We are receptive and respectful, but the reality is that we provide a service that's critical to the development of therapies and medicine that both improve human and animal health. The Envigo employees who work in Cumberland do so because they love animals. Many of those employees have been with us for 20 years or more, and they are deeply committed to do the right thing, and Envigo is deeply committed to giving them the resources to do so. The temporary lapse in providing the level of care we are used to providing caused by COVID and our desire not to euthanize hundreds of dogs is just that, temporary. We're doing everything we can to make sure that the animals in our charge are well cared for. It's the right thing to do from a moral perspective and a business perspective, and we commit to making that happen. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And you're welcome to leave that testimony with us. Are there other speakers who, at this moment, would be supportive of Envigo? Please come forward. Hello again.
Nice warm seat. I'm Dr. Cindy Buckmaster, and I've been directly involved in research and laboratory animal science care for over 25 years. Most of us don't know that dogs are actually very powerful models for biomedical studies, and when we think about research with animals, we tend to think about drug development, right? But that's just the final outcome. That's the prize we get following the decades of the necessary foundational basic research that helps us understand health and disease to begin with, right? We know how rockets work and trains and phones and, all of these computers, because we design these things. But we didn't design biological systems. We didn't design ourselves, right? And we're still trying to understand how organisms work when they're healthy and when they're sick. At some point, we get enough clues to determine that, for example, a person with disease X is sick because they can't make protein X. And that's when the pharmaceutical groups jump in and develop some drug that mimics protein X to treat that disease. Now, at that point, thousands of human volunteers will be given that drug in clinical trials before it's released to the public. But before that drug is given to a human volunteer, it's going to be screened for safety in animals. This is animal testing, and it is required by federal law. And we heard Senator Boysko mention that earlier. But remember, there would be no drug development at all without the basic foundational research with animals that precedes and informs it. Now, that research is not required by federal law. It's regulated by federal law. And and based on the discussions we were having, I thought that was an important distinction for clarity for the committee members. And this is where the USDA and PHS policy, the NIH, would come in. About a dozen bills related to animal research have been proposed between the House and the Senate, and as you've pointed out a couple of times, they're quite different. In my mind, several of them aim to end research with animals in either overt or covert ways. This means that they will also end our ability to continue to provide treatments and cures for ourselves and our loved ones, including our pets. But there are a couple of bills. The one by Senator Marsden, this bill we're talking about right now, Senate Bill 535, and Senate Bill 90 that we spoke about earlier from Senator Stanley, that are different. These bills are realistic, solution-oriented, and I think very compassionate. Together, they offer an unprecedented opportunity for the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia to partner with the research community and provide help and oversight where needed, in addition to permanent loving homes for dogs when their studies are completed. This level of transparency and public engagement has never existed anywhere in the United States before, and I applaud both senators from the bottom of my heart for their reasoned and compassionate approach that allows us to join together to work for the betterment of health and well-being for people and animals moving forward. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any about whatever research or anything else related to some of the...
Senator Marsden?
My understanding is that as science advances, that we have less needs than we used to for animal testing, but that it's still an important part of curing diseases that affect our loved ones, and that it is still something that may appear regrettable on the surface, but is essential to human health, and that a number of advances have been made through this practice. Is that correct?
So, yeah, I mean, we all would like for there to be currently a full replacement for a completely intact living system, but there isn't one yet, right? And so you're right. We want to move in that direction. Everybody wants to move in the direction of acquiring non-animal means for answering our questions. And remember that basic research piece. That's the big piece. I think where we're going to see more of that non-animal stem cell-based technology stuff replacing animals is in that testing phase, before we give human volunteers drugs. But we can't create something that we don't fully understand, right? We can't create a simulation for something we don't understand in the first place. So we're still going to be working with animals in that basic research space, and I like to think that they're going to write themselves out of this equation, because the more we learn, the more likely we are to develop alternative ways and that's how all of the alternatives that exist today have come to be. So, yeah, we just keep moving in that direction.
Any further questions? Okay. Thank you so much
You're
for
very
your
welcome.
testimony. Anybody else who wishes to speak to the committee on the in vigo, on the bill, in favor? Okay. Those who wish to come in opposition? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Daphne Nekminovich with PETA. I wanted to say I really appreciate hearing from the company. That's Lola. That's a dog that our investigator asked to adopt and was told no. I will also tell you that in October, the company killed 177 beagles, and those cadavers ended up with Virginia Tech. So as far as trying to prevent euthanasia of dogs, I'm not sure how that pertains to that. There is also a November inspection report. We are still waiting on those inspection reports. And as far as the company's respect for the USDA, our investigation recorded them. Lisa, their manager, is saying, quote, "It's a damn game you got to play to satisfy them because of the bull blank that they can make happen." She was hired $12.50 an hour in April of 2021, and I'm very glad to hear that they raised the paying wage, because the turnover rate was sky high. During her 7 months, a dozen people were hired, and none of them lasted because of working conditions and low pay. So I thank you, Senator Marsden, for proposing this bill. We do support it. The Virginia Coalition for Beagle Protection supports it, and PETA supports it. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Come and introduce yourself again.
Molly Armas, the Humane Society of the United States, the HSUS, and again, the Virginia Coalition for Beagle Protection does support Senator Marsden's bill. We do feel that it is stronger and more effective with the other bills, particularly some of the ones that now have reenactment clauses put on them. And again, this is a commercial breeder. I understand, they're being bred for a different purpose. It's still a commercial breeder, and our law should still apply to them just like they do every other commercial breeder. But again, we appreciate your leadership, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, Holly Hazard.
Holly Hazard for the Federation, and also on behalf of the 40 organizations with the Virginia Coalition to Protect Beagles. To sort of take off on Senator Marsden's statement that there aren't many jobs, but the job is important. If it's yours, and I certainly understand that, particularly for this area of the state, you can say the same thing about animals, that maybe an animal isn't important, but it is important if it's yours. And unfortunately, these animals individually don't have anyone to speak for them but us. And while we're giving the company a chance, another chance, a third chance, the animals right now are today in that facility without adequate care. We are not asking that this facility be shut down for the reasons that Senator Marsden talked about. We believe that there should be multiples of additional staff here. Unfortunately, the numbers of staff that the representative of Envigo talked about bringing in order to solve this problem by the minimum standards for animal care facilities, for animal shelters, it would not come close. That they would need 150 staff. The standards for animal care facilities is 15 minutes per animal, and if you multiply out the 5,000 animals or the 3,000 animals that they talked about that they have now in the facility, 50 staffers are not going to be adequate for that. Nothing in any of the bills that have been proposed would have any impact on Envigo if they met the limited federal requirements and the standards for animal cruelty in Virginia. So we're not saying that they need to be shut down. We're saying that they need to be shut down if they don't meet our minimum animal care standards. And we're very disappointed that this is being put off for yet another year. We understand that that's the will of the committee, but we're very disappointed in that. But we do support Senator Marsden's bill. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, next speaker.
Sharon Adams, Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. I'm dying. I just did a quick math problem. It looks to me like if you they told you 50 folks, they don't tell you how many of those are taking care of animals. So let's assume 20 of them are, which is more than we had. And let's assume they're 3,300 animal number. That gives each animal 3 minutes with an individual. You can check my math, but I did go to William and Mary, so I'm just saying. The other thing is, I want to say something about VDAX. VDAX has not had the authority to oversee, regulate, or inspect this entity. So it would be unfair to suggest that VDAX has failed in some obligation when they didn't have the authority to fulfill that obligation. It is my genuine hope that with this bill that we will be able to enable and empower VDAX to do what they are prepared to do. They inspect our shelters every year. I've been inspected for 27 years, so we know they can do it if they're given the authority and the oversight and the transparency occurs. I wish that we had some folks on the advisory committee who actually had been running shelters and inspected, but other than that, we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Susan Seward with the Virginia Veterinary Medical Association, and I just want to follow up on Sharon and Holly's comments. Our members are extremely concerned about the caretaker to animal ratio. And as Holly said, the National Animal Care and Control Association says 15 minutes a day to feed, water, and clean. It is my sincere hope that they will adequately staff, because we can do all the reporting we want, we can send all the inspectors out we want. The bodies are going to keep piling up if there aren't adequate people to take care of the dogs, period, end of story. I don't know if that can be addressed in the regulations coming up, that we would in fact impose some sort of metric, caregiver to animal ratio, and if they don't meet it within a certain time period, but that is the critical problem here. That's where this is falling apart. So Senator Marsden, thanks for taking this approach, but I think we really have to work on the staffing piece of this. So thank you very much.
Are there any other speakers? One more, Senator Marsden.
We have concerns with the bill. I don't know when you are going.
Yes, please come forward. This is the time.
Thank you. I'm Heidi Krosky with the Virginia Animal Owners Alliance. We have some concerns because of where this committee could go down the line if we establish it. So we don't represent research breeders, but we do represent people who are USDA inspected. So we just have some concerns that I wanted to address. There's currently conflict in the state. So if you're not regulated, you may not realize this, but there's been conflict between a state inspector and a federal inspector. We had a federal inspector say one thing and a state inspector say something else, and the regulated people say, okay, who's in charge?
Yeah.
So if we say, okay, they're going to be able to pick, right, which regulation or which part of the code or what, it's going to add more confusion. We already have an animal law unit, we have VDACs, we have humane investigators, welfare inspectors already. So we supported Senator Stanley's bill, which would put the companion animal definition in there. It would give these groups that we already have authority, and we're afraid that this will add more confusion if it is used, especially down the road. So we're just saying, please think about the bigger picture. If this committee is established, how else could it be used? Thank you.
I think Senator Marsden wants to respond, so you may.
Yes, essentially what this bill is, to set up a regulatory regime, as you know, is a monumental task of multiple years and what have you. What this is the reporting mechanism from this committee that we envision, from VDACs, from the reports to the chairs, that this is a conduit of information to the General Assembly for us to take direct action, and we don't need a set of regulations to determine what we need to do. We can just go on the evidence before us and say that's unacceptable. That is the one advantage to this, is that the General Assembly is its own body, and we can do this. Just to give you an example, we kept Menhaden under our control for years and years before finally giving up the ghost and turning it back over to VMRC. But that's the deal here is, and that's what they're up against. There isn't a scorecard being kept. You just have to make sure that in our judgment, and it starts here, and goes to through committee and assembly members, that the whole idea here is, in our judgment, if they're not doing well, that's it.
Right.
And that's what the General Assembly is for, because we don't have to follow regulations.
Right. I just wanted to say what our concerns were for the bill, because the animal industry has a lot of questions in the state. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Okay, if nobody else wishes to speak. Thank you. If nobody else wishes to speak, we'll conclude the public comment portion of this bill. Senator Marsden, do you want to make any closing remarks, and then we'll entertain a motion? No, that's it. I'm hopeful that this works out. I think I appreciate the doctor, coming here to talk about, the need. This is unpleasant business. There's no question about it. Let's do the best job we can with it. And I think the character of Senator Stanley, and I hope you understand my commitment to, making sure if that we have the wherewithal to do what we need to do if we need to do it. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Marsden. Okay, a motion is before us.
I'll make a motion to report and pass the bill.
Okay, and I will second that motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Hackworth?
Aye.
Senator Marsden?
Aye.
Ayes 3, noes 0.
Thank you. We will, our report to the committee will be to go forward with this bill.
And we'll have action with
Do
the
you
House.
have, I don't believe there's anything else on our docket.
I think that's it. That's it.
Okay.
And the committee will meet next Tuesday, the full committee, half hour after session, and we'll be dealing with the subcommittee report at that time. Thank you very much.